Hello there. So in this video, I'm going to be going over some more information about giving students feedback within a table, as well as the teacher dashboard check. But this time I want to have it do sort of an in-between of the last two videos that I made. So in the first example, if students have each of these correct, except there's a mistake on the very last one, or anywhere else in the table, they're getting this generic try again fix, which might be what you want to go for depending on the situation. It might be not quite enough feedback for the students to feel like they are encouraged to keep going. On the next example, they're getting super specific feedback about exactly if the question itself is right or wrong. And it could encourage some guessing. It could be very helpful for students. Again, you know where your students are at and need to kind of gauge what type of help they need when. But then they know which cells to zero in and fix. And you might not want to get that specific depending on where your students are at and what type of feedback you want to give. So this last example, we're going to go through together right now. And basically it's going to add up how many of these are correct and then report back to the student like you got 3 out of 5 correct or something like that. So let's go in right now and take care of that. I already have read only true in the image for students, and I've already copied and pasted that same check information that's piece by piece, cell by cell, just like in the previous video. And that's going to help us along with this. So in order for us to do the stuff that we need to in this, we're going to need a few things. One is we're going to need a push button for students to tell us when they're done with the table. And then I'm going to add in a graph, and that graph is going to be a hidden graph. It's where the calculations are going to happen. So let's do hidden, true. I don't want students to see it, so just by doing hidden true, when you go to preview, that graph does not show up at all. The push button does. That one's not hidden. Nothing else on here is hidden. We'll see everything except for the graph. We also want it to just do calculations for us. So we're going to tell it to read only true because the student's not interacting with this. So we don't need to know if the student's correct. And we'll add some more code shortly. Here, let's say, check my work, so that when we look at the button, that's the message that we see. And let's name some of these components. I don't really care about the sketch or this note. This one we'll call table 3 because it's on slide 3. This one's going to be button 3 because it's on slide 3. And graph 3, again, because it's on slide 3. All right, so we've got a bit of work to do. First of all, the students are going to enter in some information into the table. Within that table, it's going to check if the first cell, the second cell, the third cell, the fourth cell, and the fifth cell are correct. And if it's correct with all of them, all 5 of them, then on the teacher dashboard, it's going to mark it. But we haven't yet sort of broken this up in a different way to report that information out to the students. So that's what we're going to do right now in the graph. In order for the graph to use this, we have to sort of send the information there. So we're going to go into the CL on the graph. And in here, we're going to define a number. And the first one that I'm going to pick is check A. And I kind of want to keep it short and sweet here. So I'm going to call it C sub A, meaning check A. And this is where things are a little bit different than before with some of the other videos that I've created. So here, if the student has check A working correctly, if the check is actually true, then we want it to report out a number 1. And if it's not true, if the student has check A incorrect, we want it to report out a 0. So the number will change depending on the situation. So 1s and 0s are binary. It's kind of like on and off type of deal. And that's what we're going to use here. So I'm going to say when the check from the table 3 is check A, When that's happening, then I want it to call it a 1 for C sub A. And if that's not the case, if it's otherwise, then I want it to report out a 0. And I want this to happen for each of the cells in the table. So we just did check A, now we're going to do check B, check C, so on and so forth to get them all in. And one time saver here is that each of these checks, as I write them out, are all going to have this table 3. And if you needed to copy all of the CL or even the entire thing onto another page and do this again for a new problem, then you have to go here and here and here and here and here to change the 3 to a 5 or whatever slide you have it named as. And that can be a bit of a pain. So you'll see me do this probably from now on with most of my stuff. You can name it just sort of as a basic thing, table, and I'm going to call this table. And anywhere here that it sees table, it's going to always say that it's table 3. So if you copy this whole thing and use it on a new slide and it's slide 5, then you don't have to go here and change it to 5 and there and change it to 5 and there and there and there. You just have to change it once right here. Table 5, done. It changes all of them. So that can be a super time saver. I really enjoyed learning that one for myself. That's 3 of them, 4, and 5. All right, so we need that one to be A, this one to be B, C, and C, B, D, and finally E and E. Each of these, again, standing for a different cell, the first cell, the second cell, the third, the fourth, and the fifth cell. All right, so we're ready to grab that information, but now we want to do something with it. So let's go into the graph itself. And in here, we'll name something, check total equals adding up check A plus check B plus check C plus check B plus check E. Each of these 5 pieces are what I just put in the CL for the graph. So if I go back here, what I just highlighted was these 5 things. They're being sent into the graph. Once they're sent into the graph, I want to add them up, because if this one here is correct, it's going to be marked as a 1. And let's say that this one also got marked as a 1 because it was correct, and this one got marked as correct as a 1, but these 2 were zeros. Then it's going to output a 3. So I can just use that in a sentence and say, you got 3 out of 5 correct, or whatever the situation is. So this C total is something that I want to keep hold of and use. So I'm just highlighting it, and I've copied it on my keyboard. And so let's think about this. So if we go to preview and we type in the answers, and I say, check my work, it looks like nothing happens. I do have the check mark on the teacher dashboard, but the student's not getting the feedback that we want. So why is that? We set up all the addition, we've got everything going on, but we never reported that out in words to the student. So that's why it looks like we're not doing anything on this side. So we have to put a note in, and I'm going to just raise it above the graph since I'm not using the graph to show anything. And we're going to use a content sync. And I want to say to students, you have this many out of 5 correct. And we can't just leave it a blank like this, because that means that that's what the students are going to see. I can show you. We don't want it to look like that. We want it to actually fill in a number. But we also don't want students seeing this yet. We want it to show up after they've pressed the button. So we can also add in a few other things. So the button is going to be button 3. This is, again, just a shortcut for in the future if we need that same code. And let's call something submitted. And we're going to use the word submitted to reflect when the button press count is greater than 0. And I want it to be, press count, let's say less than or equal to 3. So that's my definition of submitted. And so I will say when submitted, then we're going to get this message, and otherwise don't say anything, just leave it blank. So now if I go to here, I'm going to go to, I see that I don't see it. I'm going to go to check my work, and I still have that blank right here that we say we don't want. We want that actually to fill in with the amount. So the way to do that, right here, is in this spot we're going to put that variable from the graph in. And you can do this a few different ways, but I prefer to make a definition up top, and check total is basically what it was. It was the total of the condition check. So check total is going to be taken from the graph. So another generic thing up here. Anytime that I say the word graph, I'm talking about graph 3. And it's a number, and I still have it on my copy and paste memory on my computer. I don't know what that's called. And I'll paste it here. So check total, if I use this word, it's telling the computer, go back and look at the graph. And when you see this, that's what I'm talking about when I say check total. So I want to put check total here. I'm going to actually do this first and show you that that's not going to work, but we're really close. So just take a look here, 4, 7, 10, 13, let's say 15 just to get something wrong. And look at that. It just says check total. It's thinking that that's just a regular word. So we have to tell the computer, no, that's a command. And so to say, like, this is actually a variable that we're talking about, we're going to use the $sign, wavy bracket at the beginning, and wavy bracket at the end. That says to the computer, that's not just me saying a word to the student, that's me telling you to go back here and look at this variable. So now let's test it out. 4, 7, 10, 13, and something wrong, 15. 4 out of 5 are correct. What about if I put 16 in here? 5 out of 5 are correct. What about if I change this to like 5, and this one to 1, and this one to, let's go with 0. 2 out of 5 correct. So each time it's reporting out the total correct, which I feel is a little bit more feedback for students and a little bit more helpful for them. I'm noticing that it's not going away, so I'm wondering if I put my inequality sign facing the wrong direction. That was in the note. Submitted. When the press count is greater than 0, and when the press count, oh, I'm using press count. All right, so it's looking for me to press the button a few more times for it to disappear. And I don't want that. I want time since press. And I didn't even realize I did that. Time since press. All right, that should work better. Let's see, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16. Check my work. And disappears. All right, so that makes me happy. And I'm not going to do it, but you could add in another note if you wanted to. And then in that next note, copy all of this. And then in the content of the next note, say when it's submitted and this check total is equal to 5, like all things are correct, then say great job or something.